K9, German Shepherd, tries to save her pup from quicksand. And then this happens. She barked until her throat gave out. Her paws were bleeding. The desert was swallowing her baby whole. No one saw it. No one heard her cries. She was a K9 German Shepherd once trained to save lives. But today, she was a mother fighting for just one. When a hiker stumbled across the scene deep in the Arizona sands, what he witnessed would haunt him forever. But what happened next? It left even the most hardened rescue team in tears. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more true, emotional stories like this directly to you. This isn't just a story about survival, it's about instinct, love, and a miracle no one saw coming. The late afternoon sun scorched the sands of southern Arizona. Heat shimmered off the dunes like ghosts, blurring the lines between sky and earth. It was the kind of dry, blinding heat that silenced everything. No birds, no insects, no wind, just stillness. Except for one frantic figure tearing through the emptiness. Her name was Zara. She was a retired K9 German Shepherd, once trained for search and rescue in Nevada. At 8 years old, her muzzle had grayed, and her eyes bore the wisdom and the wounds of years spent risking her life for humans. But now, she wasn't running after danger. She was running toward it. Because her pup was gone. 6 weeks earlier, Zara had given birth unexpectedly after being abandoned near an old ranger station. No one knew how she'd ended up alone in the desert, but somehow she had survived. And somehow she had kept one of her pups alive. The others had perished in the cold nights. Only one remained. A soft-bellied, sandy-coated little boy she had named Sable in her mind, though no one had ever spoken the name aloud. They'd found shelter in a cracked drainage pipe near an old mining road. Zara would venture out at dawn and dusk, searching for scraps, water, anything. She was lean, fast, and careful, still guided by the discipline of her former life. But on this day, something was wrong. She had left her pup in the pipe and gone further than usual, desperation pushing her across a stretch of flatland known by locals as Devil's Tongue. She had never dared to walk it before. It was deceptive, looked solid, but beneath the surface, the sand moved and breathed. Quicksand, not the Hollywood kind, but real and deadly just the same. When she returned, her ears pricked before she even saw it. A soft whimper. High-pitched, weak. Then silence. She bolted. What she saw next stopped her heart. The pipe had collapsed. The sand around it had shifted, sunken in the middle like a broken plate. And in the center of that depression, half buried, wriggling, was Sable. The pup's tiny legs kicked helplessly as he sank deeper with every movement. Zara lunged forward, barking with every ounce of strength in her lungs. She circled the pit, searching for solid footing. The ground crumbled beneath her paws. She backed off, tried again, barked louder. She jumped in. Her body was heavier, but she pressed forward, chest low, using her weight to stay above. Every time Sable sank deeper, she got closer. Her teeth reached for the scruff of his neck, but her paws slipped. And then, it happened. She slid in too. Now they were both trapped. She didn't stop barking. She barked until the pain filled her mouth. She lifted Sable with her nose, pushing him higher onto her back. His tiny paws clung to her fur. She growled, strained, clawed her way forward, but gravity pulled them down. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than a shadow in the sand, until a man appeared on the ridge. Jack Reynolds, 34, a local hiking guide, had taken a shortcut through the old trail after a canceled group tour. He was heading home when he spotted something moving where nothing should move. At first, he thought it was a mirage. Then he heard the barking. Then he ran. What he found made his stomach drop. A fully grown German Shepherd, half submerged in a crater of loose sand, trembling and wild-eyed, with a tiny pup clinging to her back. Both were sinking. He dropped his gear and shouted, "Hold on." Zara didn't understand the words, but she stopped barking. Her eyes locked on his. Jack rushed to the edge, almost slipping himself. He threw his backpack aside and grabbed the only thing he had, a long nylon leash. He tied it around his waist and lay flat, spreading his weight as he inched forward. "Easy, girl," he muttered. "I've got you." He reached for the pup first. Zara snarled, protective. But when Jack's hands touched Sable gently and pulled him free, she whimpered instead. Then Jack went back for her. But she was deeper now, and sinking faster. He couldn't get a grip, and her eyes were closing. "No," he gasped. "You're not done. Not yet." Zara's legs trembled as she fought to keep her head above the sinking sand. Her back was raw where the pup had clung to her fur, and her ribs heaved with every labored breath. Her body was shutting down. The years of service, the months of abandonment, and now this final trial, her strength was nearly gone. But Jack wasn't giving up. He lay flat against the rim of the sandpit, feeling the edges collapse beneath him as he reached forward again. His arm strained, shoulder grinding against gravel, fingertips brushing against the matted fur of Zara's neck. She flinched, but didn't resist. Her eyes met his for a fleeting second, and in that moment, something passed between them. Not understanding, not trust, but a shared desperation. Jack gritted his teeth. "Come on, girl, don't let go." He scrambled for his backpack, still within reach, and grabbed a climbing rope coiled tight from his last trip to Red Rock. It wasn't made for rescue, but neither was he. He made a loop, leaned in again, and slipped it around Zara's shoulders. She didn't resist. Her body was still, barely moving. Her ears were down, her nose covered in sand. "Don't you give up," he whispered. "You brought your baby this far. Let me help you now." Jack tied the rope to a weathered fence post a few feet away, drove his heels into the hard sand, and pulled. Nothing. He leaned back harder, using his entire weight. The rope creaked. The sand shifted. Zara's body inched, just barely, toward the edge. Behind him, Sable yelped from the safety of Jack's backpack where he tucked the pup earlier. The sound triggered something in Zara. She groaned. Her paws twitched. Then, miraculously, she moved, clawing forward an inch, maybe two. Jack saw it. Hope surged. "That's it. That's it, girl. Fight." He pulled again. Zara's front legs broke through the softer surface. Her body rose just enough to catch onto the harder rim of the pit. Jack crawled forward and grabbed the rope under her chest, yanking with everything he had. One last pull. Her body slid free. She collapsed onto solid ground, unmoving. Jack dropped to his knees, gasping. Sweat poured from his forehead. Dust caked to his skin. He rolled Zara onto her side and checked her breathing. Shallow, but there. Her heart was still beating. She was alive. But barely. Jack didn't waste a second. He gently lifted her and carried her like a firefighter, staggering back toward the trailhead. Sable, still weak, whimpered softly from the backpack as Jack juggled both of them through the burning sand. The hike to the car felt like hours. In truth, it was only 30 minutes, but every step was a war. He reached his Jeep, opened the back seat, and laid Zara across an old beach towel. Sable curled against her chest instinctively, as if he knew his place was there. Jack slammed the door, jumped behind the wheel, and drove, fast and silent, toward the nearest veterinary clinic in Tucson. The clinic doors burst open just as the sun began to set. Jack rushed inside, Zara cradled in his arms, covered in dirt, her breathing shallow. "I need help. German Shepherd. She was stuck in quicksand. She's fading fast." The front desk tech jumped into action, calling the vet and grabbing a gurney. Within moments, Zara was whisked away into the emergency room. Jack stood frozen in the waiting area, heart pounding, hands shaking. He looked down. Sable blinked up at him from inside the pack. "You're safe now," Jack whispered, kneeling. "But you gotta stay strong. Your mama needs you." An hour passed, then two. Jack never left. He held Sable wrapped in a towel, whispering stories about mountains and rivers and trails. Anything to fill the silence. Finally, a vet tech came through the door, holding a clipboard. Her eyes met his, and a gentle smile softened her face. "She made it," she said. "Barely. But she's a fighter." Jack's shoulders dropped in relief. "She's resting now. But she wouldn't let go of the towel your scent was on. She kept sniffing it, like she knew you saved her." He didn't answer, because something deeper than words had just settled in his chest, a bond. One born not of ownership, but of survival. And it was only beginning.
Zara stayed in the veterinary clinic for 3 days. The staff admired her resilience. Despite her injuries-torn paw pads, dehydration, exhaustion, she recovered faster than expected. But the real wounds weren't the ones visible on her body. They were buried in the haunted way she flinched at sudden noises, the way she curled her body protectively around Sable at night, even in the safety of a soft recovery kennel, and the way she never barked not once after the rescue. Jack visited every day. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was instinct. But something about the way Zara had looked at him in that sandpit kept tugging at him, like she'd passed him a message he still hadn't finished reading. On the third day, he arrived early. Morning, he greeted the tech, offering a small wave. "How is she today?" "Resting better." The woman smiled. "She's letting us touch her paws now without pulling away." "That's huge." Jack nodded and walked back to the kennels. Zara was lying in the corner, Sable nestled against her. Belly the little pup had started walking short distances, though his legs still wobbled under him. When Jack stepped into the room, Sable perked up first. He stumbled forward, tail wagging, and bumped into Jack's boot. Zara opened one eye. Their gazes met. No growl, no tension, only recognition. Jack knelt down and offered his hand. Zara sniffed it, then very slowly pressed her nose against his palm. "Hey girl," he whispered. "You're doing better, huh?" He scratched gently behind her ear. She didn't pull away. In fact, she leaned into it. "She likes you," came a voice behind him. Jack turned. Dr. Keller, the senior vet, stood with a clipboard in her hand and a curious expression. "She doesn't let anyone else get that close," the doctor continued. "We think she has service history. Based on her reactions, obedience patterns, physical conditioning, likely canine." Jack sat back. "She was trained. You can tell." "Yeah. And whoever dumped her, they probably knew she had pups and didn't care." Jack's jaw tightened. "Or they especially didn't care." Dr. Keller lowered her voice. "There's something else. We scanned her. She's chipped." Jack stood up fast. "You found the owner?" "We found a registered handler. Retired, name's Mark Sandler. Former search and rescue unit in Nevada. We tried calling, no answer. Old number, but it's still something." Jack stared at the information, his thoughts swirling. "She's not mine," he said quietly, "but it feels like she chose me." The doctor gave a knowing smile. "Sometimes dogs don't wait for paperwork to decide where they belong." Later that night, back in his apartment, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat on the floor of his small living room, a printed copy of Zara's chip report in one hand, and a flashlight in the other. He highlighted the last known address of Mark Sandler somewhere outside Reno. Data kept turning in his head. Why would someone with a decorated history abandon a dog like Zara, a trained canine, and a pregnant one at that? He didn't want to believe it, but the facts were there. Jack reached over and gently lifted Sable from the makeshift bedding on his couch. The pup wriggled into his arms, curled up instantly against his chest, and sighed. It hit Jack then how fragile this little life was, and how close it had come to disappearing into the sand. He wasn't ready to let that go. The next morning, Jack returned to the clinic with a decision. "I want to foster her," he said. The front desk technician blinked. "Zara and Sable, too. If there's a chance the original owner doesn't show up, I'd like to keep them." She nodded slowly. "You'll need to sign some temporary care forms." "I'll sign anything." When Zara walked out of the clinic under her own strength, that afternoon, she did so beside Jack, not behind him. And when they got to his Jeep, she didn't hesitate. She jumped in, looked around, and lay down beside her pup. Home wasn't something she understood yet, but whatever it was, she was moving toward it. 2 weeks passed. Zara had adjusted to Jack's small desert home, as if she'd always lived there. She slept curled on a worn blanket beside his bed. She ate in calm, careful bites. She never barked, never whined, but followed Jack room to room, like a shadow with eyes that never stopped watching. And Sable. He had become a whirlwind of energy. The tiny pup now ran with wobbly joy across the dusty yard, ears bouncing, tail wagging like a metronome. He followed Zara everywhere, mimicking her movements, sometimes even trying to copy her quiet, graceful stance by the door when Jack returned home. For Jack, it felt like the rhythm of something new, something healing, but healing doesn't always come without interruption. It was late in the afternoon, the sky burning orange as it dipped toward the horizon, when Jack's phone rang. Unknown number, area code, Nevada. He didn't answer right away. Something in his chest twisted. He finally swiped the screen. Hello. There was a pause, then a man's voice rough, low, tired. This is Mark Sandler. I was told you have a dog. German Shepherd, female. Jack stood instantly alert. Yes, Zara. Another pause. Her name was Juno, the man said. Jack swallowed. She was chipped. That's how I found your name. I didn't think she was still alive. The line went quiet again. Jack stepped outside into the dry air. She is, barely made it. I found her trying to pull her pup out of quicksand. There was breathing on the other end. Deep labored. She had pups. Sandler asked. One survived, Jack said. He's with me too. Sandler let out something between a sigh and a groan. I didn't know. I didn't know any of it. I didn't even know she was gone. She was taken. Jack tensed. Taken. The voice shifted. More human now. Less defensive. I was hospitalized, Sandler explained. Stroke. I was out for a long time. Didn't have family. My neighbor was supposed to care for her. She told me Juno died. I believed her. Jack's heart pounded. She didn't die. She ended up alone in the desert. I'm sorry, Sandler said. I'm truly sorry. If I had known. Jack looked through the window, watching Zara rest beside the pup. You trained her. From the time she was a year old. She served with me for 5 years. Avalanche rescues, mountain work. Best dog I've ever known. She once dragged a child out of a collapsed cabin in the middle of a blizzard. She's still that dog, Jack said quietly. Sandler's voice cracked. I don't know if I should ask. I don't even know if she'd recognize me now, but I'd like to see her. I need to see her. Jack hesitated. He didn't want to say no, but he also didn't want to pull Zara back into something that might hurt her again. Far from Tucson, he said. If you're able to travel, come here. But if she doesn't remember if she doesn't want to guy, won't force her. There was silence. Then a soft, that's fair. They agreed on a day. Jack hung up. His hands were trembling. Looked at Zara, who now stood at the door as if she sensed something had changed. Hey girl, he said softly. Someone from your past is coming. She tilted her head, then slowly walked toward him, rested her head against his thigh, and closed her eyes. The day Sandler arrived, the desert was quiet. He stepped out of the rental car, slowly a man, in his 60s, thin, walking with a cane, his left hand slightly curled from what looked like partial paralysis. His eyes scanned the property until they landed on her dot. Zara stood in the doorway. Frozen. Sandler didn't move. Juno, he whispered. Zara blinked, took one step forward, then another. Then she stopped, nose in the air, breathing in the space between them. She stared at him. Her ears twitched, and then softly, like the memory of a voice long forgotten, she whimpered. Sandler knelt, tears spilling down his weathered face. Zara walked straight to him. No, bark. No. Hesitation. She pressed her head into his chest and stayed there, breathing deep. He wrapped both arms around her. I thought I lost you, he choked. I'm so sorry, Jack. Watched from the porch, Sable in his arms, unsure what to feel, because something in Zara had remembered. And maybe now? The hard part wasn't rescuing her, it was choosing who she belonged to. That evening, the air over the Arizona desert was unusually still. The sun dipped below the horizon in a slow bleed of amber and lavender, casting long shadows across Jack's modest yard. Inside the house, the silence stretched. Near the back door, her eyes open but still, her body curled beside Sable. Her tail thumped just once every few minutes, as if she was listening to something no one else could hear. Sandler sat in the armchair across from her, hands shaking slightly as he sipped from a glass of water Jack had offered him. Jack stood by the kitchen counter, watching both of them from a distance. She remembers everything, Sandler said. Finally, his voice rough and soft at once. I don't know how, but she does. Jack nodded. Dogs don't forget the people they trust, or the ones who break that trust. Sandler's mouth twitched. You think I broke hers? I think you trusted someone who didn't deserve it, Jack said, but she paid the price. There was no malice in his tone, just truth. Sandler stared down at his hands. You ever lose something you didn't realize was part of you until it was gone? Jack exhaled through his nose. Yeah. Sandler looked at him. Was it a dog? Jack shook his head. My brother, Afghanistan. He was K-9 two-handler. I was supposed to be there. I wasn't. Silence fell again. Heavier this time. The only sound was the occasional soft grumble of Sable shifting in sleep. I didn't come to take her away, Sandler said suddenly. Not if she's found something better. I came because I had to see, with my own eyes, that she made it, that she survived. Jack looked at him carefully. And if she wants to go back with you, Sandler hesitated, then I'll take her home. But I think maybe she's already there. He leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes. Jack stood in the hallway long after the old man had fallen asleep, watching Zara as she lifted her head, ears alert, eyes bouncing between the two men as if weighing a decision. The next morning, the sun rose pink and early. Sandler packed his bag slowly. He'd only brought a change of clothes and an old chew toy, Zara's favorite from when she was 2 years old. He left it on the floor beside her. She sniffed it, looked up at him, and gently placed a paw over it. Jack stood at the door as Sandler stepped outside. "I don't think she'll go," Jack said, his voice quiet. "I know," Sandler replied, his gaze fixed ahead. "She doesn't need me anymore. You gave her the foundation," Jack added. "The discipline, the skills. That's still with her. You didn't lose her legacy." Sandler smiled sadly. "You think dogs know what legacy means?" Jack shrugged. "I think they know what love means." Sandler turned to him. "You gonna keep them both?" Jack looked back into the house where Sable was now attempting to drag a towel twice his size across the living room. Zara followed behind him, tail swishing low and calm. "I don't think I get a say," Jack said with a grin. "They've already made the choice for me." Sandler nodded slowly. "You're a good man, Jack. She's lucky." Jack shook his head. "I'm the lucky one." As Sandler got into the rental car, Zara trotted outside. She stopped by his door. He opened it. She leaned in and pressed her head gently to his chest one last time. A goodbye, not cold but final. Sandler wept quietly, running his fingers through the fur behind her ears. "Take care of her," he whispered. "She'll always give you everything she has." "I know," Jack replied. He watched the car drive off, dust trailing behind it in the golden morning light. Zara returned to the porch and sat beside him, eyes on the horizon. She didn't need words. She was home. That night, Jack sat under the stars with both dogs beside him. Sable rested his head on Zara's paw, small and safe, and Jack, for the first time in years, felt something in his chest loosen. He reached down, touched Zara's back gently, and said, "You didn't just save your pup, you saved me too." She didn't move, but he knew she heard him. The stars blinked above them, and in the stillness of that desert night, something sacred settled between man and dog, a silent promise, a second chance. Weeks passed. Summer stretched lazily across the Arizona desert, painting the sky with flames each evening, and blanketing the earth with a dry stillness each morning. But inside Jack's house, life no longer felt silent, it felt lived in. Zara had regained her full strength, her coat gleamed again under the sun, and her steps were confident, measured. Still, she remained disciplined, never jumping, never barking, even off duty. She carried herself like she was still working. Except now, her mission was different, to raise her pup and protect the man who had pulled her from the pit. Sable, on the other hand, had no concept of restraint. He grew faster than expected, long legs, oversized ears, and enough mischief to wear Zara out daily. He would chew anything that looked like it didn't bite back. Couch cushions, Jack's work, boots, and most recently, a half-read book on trauma recovery that Jack had been meaning to finish. "You're lucky, you're cute," Jack muttered, pulling the slobbery pages apart with a grin. Despite the chaos, Jack had never felt more grounded. Each day began the same: coffee on the back steps, Zara lying beside him, Sable running wild around the yard. He hadn't realized how lonely his life had become until it was full again. But peace, he knew, never lasted forever. One Thursday morning, just as Jack finished his second cup of coffee, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something told him to. "Jack Reynolds." Came a voice on the other end, clear, female, professional. "Yeah, who's calling?" "This is Officer Janessa Porter from the Cochise County Sheriff's Department. We received your contact information from the Canine Registry regarding a dog named Zara. She's listed as retired surgeon rescue from Nevada." Jack stood up slowly. "That's right. We're coordinating with local agencies for a flash flood rescue operation out near some small hiking group stranded in a canyon. We're asking for available trained dogs in the area. We know she's retired, but she's not a machine," Jack said sharply. "She's already given everything." There was a pause. "I understand, sir, but the terrain is unstable. The window for locating survivors is closing fast. There's a missing boy, 10 years old." Jack's breath caught in his chest. Zara, who had been lying near his feet, looked up at him. Her ears twitched, head tilting ever so slightly, as if she could sense the shift in his energy. "How far is it?" Jack asked, his voice quiet. "Hour-and-a-half drive. They've already started deploying, but they could use help." Jack looked at Zara. She hadn't taken her eyes off him. She was already on her feet. The sun was high and cruel by the time Jack pulled into the makeshift command center near the mouth of the canyon. Emergency vehicles were scattered across the gravel like spilled toys. Radios crackled. Officers moved with purpose. A woman in tactical gear approached as Jack stepped out of the jeep. "You must be Reynolds," she said, offering a firm handshake. "I'm Officer Porter." Zara leaped down from the vehicle, ears up, eyes focused. She didn't need instruction. This wasn't her first scene. "She still work on command?" Porter asked. Kneeling, Jack nodded. "She hasn't forgotten." A thing they briefed quickly. The missing boy's name was Eli, 10 years old, last seen slipping away from the group before heavy rain hit. Now the canyon was flooding unpredictably, paths washed out, visibility low. The other rescue dogs had covered the south trail, but no one had searched the northern ravine. Too narrow, one officer said. Too unstable. Zara walked toward it like she already knew. Jack clipped the vest over her shoulders, the old one Sandler had left behind. She stood still, letting him fasten each strap, her body humming with readiness. Yeshua, Jack whispered. She looked up at him. That was all he needed. Go find him. And she ran. The northern ravine was tight, barely a shoulder-width path in places. Jack followed her from a distance, slipping, climbing, heart thudding. The roar of floodwater echoed in waves. Zara barked. Once, short, sharp. Jack sprinted. He reached the bend and saw her, crouched beside a cluster of rocks, tail low, ears forward. Beneath a ledge, curled in the smallest space imaginable, was a boy, soaked, pale, alive. Zara nosed him gently, then looked back at Jack. Jack dropped to his knees. Hey buddy, you're okay now? The boy opened his eyes slowly. Doggy, Jack smiled through the lump in his throat. Yeah, she found you. An hour later, back at the command post, Zara stood surrounded by paramedics, deputies, and strangers, people who had heard the story already. The dog who came out of retirement to save a boy no one could reach. Jack stood quietly behind her, hand resting on her shoulder. Porter approached. She saved that child's life. No doubt about it. She didn't hesitate, Jack said. Some dogs, they never stop working, Porter added. Even when no one's asking. Jack nodded slowly. She's not just a dog. She's a legacy, Porter smiled. That she is. Sable barked from the passenger seat of the Jeep, too small to understand but somehow proud all the same. Zara looked up at Jack. He leaned down, pressing his forehead gently to hers. You did good, girl, he whispered. You did real good. And in that moment, Jack understood something he hadn't fully grasped before. Zara hadn't just returned to service that day. She had become something more. Not a rescue dog, not a hero, but a bridge between pain and healing, between loss and life, between yesterday's scars and tomorrow's strength. 3 months later, the desert began to change. The wind cooled slightly. The colors of the earth softened into deeper tones of rust and gold. It was the kind of subtle seasonal shift only desert dwellers understood, a whisper of transformation, rather than a declaration. And in Jack's world, things had transformed quietly. Zara now carried herself with calm authority around the house. She was no longer just recovering, she was restored. Sable had grown into a lanky, bright-eyed young dog, full of boundless energy and curiosity. He trailed after his mother like a shadow, mimicking her every move, learning discipline not from commands, but from watching her. Jack had come to rely on their rhythm. Morning walks at sunrise, slow evenings on the porch, training sessions in the open field behind the house. He had built a schedule not just for them but with them. His home, once so empty, now pulsed with the kind of life that didn't need to speak to be felt. And then, one day, a letter arrived. It was official. The local sheriff's department had submitted a nomination. Zara, formerly Juno, was being honored with the Medal of Valor for her life-saving action during the Sonoita Canyon rescue. The ceremony was to take place in Phoenix. A crowd would be present. Media too. Jack wasn't sure how he felt about that. She doesn't do it for recognition, he said aloud as he read the letter in the kitchen. Zara, lying near the back door, lifted her head. No, Jack said, smiling, but I think she deserves it. He bent down, kissed the top of her head, and whispered, You're going to show the whole state what a hero looks like. The day of the ceremony, the auditorium was filled with officers, rescue workers, canine handlers, and volunteers from across Arizona. A banner stretched across the stage. Service, sacrifice, loyalty. Beneath it stood a podium and a row of chairs. Jack stood backstage, Zara at his side wearing a freshly cleaned vest, her eyes focused and calm. Sable was with a volunteer nearby, too energetic for the formal setting but proudly watching. When Zara's name was called, the room erupted in applause. Jack walked her out slowly. They stood together on stage, side by side, as the sheriff read her citation. He listed her years of SAR service in Nevada, her miraculous survival after abandonment, and finally, the Quicksand rescue and the boy she had saved in Sonoita. She is not just a dog, the sheriff concluded. She is a living example of why loyalty and courage don't fade with age. They grow. Zara didn't react to the words or the standing ovation. She simply sat tall, eyes forward, ears alert. Then the medal fitted onto a custom harness placed over her shoulders. Jack leaned down, whispered something no one else heard, and Zara lifted her head just a little higher. Later, outside in the warm sunlight, reporters tried to get Jack's attention. Cameras clicked. Questions flew. Did you find her? Did you train her? Will you adopt more rescues? Jack answered a few, then politely stepped back. Zara needed space. She stood beside him on the grass, tongue out, panting slightly from the heat, and then she barked once, a strong, proud sound. The first time Jack had ever heard her bark since the Quicksand. Sable, hearing it from a distance, barked back. It felt like music. That night, the house was quiet again. Jack placed the medal in a small wooden shadow box and hung it in the hallway. Beneath it, he taped a photograph, a candid shot, taken by a paramedic after the canyon rescue. It showed Zara standing guard beside the rescued boy, her body soaked, her eyes sharp, her stance noble. He stared at it for a long time, then walked to the porch. Zara was already there, lying on the cool boards, gazing at the horizon as the last light disappeared. Jack sat beside her. "You ever think," he said softly, "that maybe we were both just waiting to find each other?" Zara didn't move. He reached over, resting a hand gently on her back. "I was drowning too, you know? Not in quicksand, but in something quieter. You pulled me out." She turned her head and laid it on his knee. Sable bounded up moments later, dropping a torn rope toy between them. Jack laughed. "We'll get to play in the morning, bud." But Sable didn't want to wait. He nudged Zara. Zara stood. She walked down into the dirt yard with her son at her side. Together, they circled and sprinted, tails flying like flags in the twilight. Jack watched N for the first time in years. His chest didn't feel heavy. He felt grateful, not for a medal, not for headlines, but for the gift of a second chance. Because sometimes, a hero isn't someone who wears a uniform. Sometimes, it's a dog who never gives up even when the world does. And sometimes, what begins as a rescue becomes a family.